Monday to Friday at 12:30 p.m. only on Bloomberg Quint.
It's an astonishing development, to say the least. India's premier investigation agency, the CBI, has begun investigations into its own second-most senior official, Rakesh Asthana, after complaints of corruption and taking bribes. Asthana, in turn, has accused his boss and the topmost official, CBI Director Alok Verma, of being corrupt instead. The allegations involve charges of going slow on a case against a Hyderabad-based businessman, Satish Sana, who is being investigated for his connections to Hawala operator Moin Qureshi. Now, with the number one and number two most senior officials at the Central Bureau of Investigation accusing each other, serious questions are being raised about the credibility of the organization. Remember, for long, the CBI has been accused of pursuing cases as per the whims of the ruling party, whichever it may be. But now, for the first time, turf wars within the organization have been exposed. To speak more on this, we're joined now by former Joint Director of the CBI, Shantonu Sen, who is also author of the book CBI Insider Speaks. Thank you, Mr. Sen, for speaking with us here at Bloomberg Quint. How do you see all of these developments? They're being described as a turf war, some are saying a political angle to it. But on the whole, what do you think is going on within the CBI right now?
CBI officers must have been shaken up. This is so unfortunate. Even if it is not that CBI has not investigated his own officers before. In my time, a DIG was trapped for seeking money from the Jain Hawala diaries authors. He was trapped, he was prosecuted, he was found disproportionate. His sources of income were found disproportionate to his known sources of income. So CBI officer at the level of DIG has been investigated. Sometimes even senior officers' action has not been found proper and correct. They have been sent out of the organization. I know joint directors have been sent out, DIGs have been investigated. But this is the first time that a special director of the CBI is investigated for corruption. And the complainant is no less than the director himself. In the other cases, the complainants were private persons. They had alleged that these officers were corrupt. CBI made the preliminary inquiries and then investigated, prosecuted them, sent them to jail. There have been SPs done. There are legal officers who have been investigated. So I'm no stranger to CBI investigating its own officers for corruption. But this one, top officer of the CBI, is being investigated on the orders of the director. And what is more unfortunate, that this officer who is investigated has been making allegation against the director long before the FIR was registered against him. And the government has allowed the situation to continue for at least, to my knowledge, from July onwards. It may be even earlier. So there is a distinct failure of governance on the part of this man. This matter should have been stopped, halted. Investigations could take place, but the officer who is to be investigated should not have remained in the CBI. He should have been out of the CBI. So there has been a serious error of judgment on the part of the CVC and the government.
You know, today there have been reports, Mr. Sen, that the Prime Minister's office has summoned both the top two officials to speak with them and try to sort it out. Now, from a layman's point of view, one wonders that these are very serious allegations of, demanding bribes of up to 5 crore rupees to suppress investigations into a Hawala case. Should this be handled at the level of 2 officers being summoned to the PMO and being asked perhaps to sort things out among themselves? One would think that this kind of a serious situation demands a transparent, independent probe.
This is not an administrative mistake or a malfunctioning that the Prime Minister can call them and say, settle it. These are acts of corruption. Prevention of Corruption Act 120B, and Mr. Asthana is not alone. There are others named with him in the FIR. They include his Deputy Superintendent of Police, who has been searched and arrested. Prime Minister can do nothing. Once the FIR has been registered and the case has gone to the court, investigation starts, and as we know the law of the country, police can start an investigation, but they cannot close the investigation without the permission of the court. This is the law of our country. So it is irrespective of what the Prime Minister does. I regret the action of the government has been too late, too little. Action should have been taken in July itself. The whiff of a difference of opinion between the number 1 and number 2 should have immediately alerted the government that remove one of them.
Well, from all...
Not having done so, now it's out of their hands.
From all media reports, number 1 didn't want number 2 in that position in the first place. And perhaps that's where the whole problem began. But this has escalated into a different scenario because the complaint or the case is based on complaints by a private party, Mr. Sana. And, reading through his complaint shows you that he's essentially complaining that I paid nearly 3 crore rupees in bribes and my case wasn't dropped as was promised to me. It reads like a complaint of saying that I paid for services which weren't rendered.
I'm not sure your first observation that the number 1 never wanted number 2 is entirely correct, because the number 2 was additional director and working in the CBI, and when R.K. Datta was unfortunately, very, very unfortunately removed, then he took charge as acting director, and Mr. Alok Verma took charge from him. He continued as additional director. When it came to the question of his promotion, by that time Mr. Alok Verma had been in the chair for more than few months. He took up the position that no, he has been found wanting in a number of investigations, so he is not fit to be special director yet, unless he is cleared. But the CVC overruled him, matter even went to Supreme Court through interested parties, and Rakesh Asthana was confirmed as special director. That's where the problem began. And if the government didn't want the problem to continue, they should have removed one of them. Now, Alok Verma could not be removed because he was under a tenure posting. Then Rakesh Asthana should have been removed, placed somewhere else, and brought in when Alok Verma retired. To continue with him has aggravated the situation, and these corruption cases have now shamed the CBI, shamed the government, and alarmed all of us who believe that we should have an honest anti-corruption agency in the country. This government came to power on an anti-corruption drive, and it was in its interest to keep its anti-corruption agency in fine fettle. It has failed us to do so.
If you look at the complaint closely of Mr. Sana, it's quite interesting. He speaks about being asked for a bribe through 2 middlemen who are also named in the complaint. And he names Mr. Asthana as, in terms of hearsay, he says that first he was shown a WhatsApp display picture that said it was Mr. Asthana, and then he Googled and reconfirmed. And then he was put on speakerphone in the middle of a conversation, and then was told that one of the people speaking was Mr. Asthana.
I have read his...
Yes. My question to you, Mr. Sen, is that...
Yes, I have read that statement.
Yes.
I have also read that statement in full.
Yes.
I am aware of that statement.
Yes.
That statement has to be investigated and found to be true. It has not yet been investigated. The statement is there, and probably some verification has been done. And that statement makes out a criminal charge against Mr. Asthana. If it is otherwise proved right, he should be prosecuted. If not, the case will fall. But the statement, as it is written, makes out a grievous charge against Mr. Asthana.
Sure. My question to you, Mr. Sen, is that under the amended Prevention of Corruption Act as of 2018, the bribe giver is also considered an accused. Now, in this statement, Mr. Sana, not once or twice, but details the number of times through intermediaries that he has given this bribe. And like I said, he's actually demanding that I have not got the value for the money I gave. Doesn't it strike you as peculiar that he would put out a complaint which would in the end indict himself as well as per the current law?
You see, the bribe giver, if he makes a complaint that he was forced to give a bribe and he wanted something as return of the bribe, he has his punishment is not that serious, not that high. I agree with you that a bribe giver who is caught giving bribe without having complained to anybody that he was forced to give a bribe will be equally guilty. Here also the bribe giver is guilty, but here he has come out with a statement where he has accepted the guilt on himself, and according to our law, he can be treated as an approver and then not punished, even though he is as guilty as the other, because he has exposed the corruption in 4 other persons. Then they will be punished on his evidence. So that is the old law. He is a criminal, no doubt, under the new law, but he has come out openly, he has explained his role, he has confessed to his role, he has exposed others. So the prayer can be made by the prosecution to treat him, I suppose, as an approver, and then he will not be punished. He is probably hoping for that.
Let's talk about what this does to the image of the CBI, which is considered the premier investigation agency. We see in almost every high-profile case there is a demand for a CBI investigation. Now you have a situation where the topmost official is also facing serious accusations from his deputy. So it goes both ways. What kind of an impact does it have on the image of the CBI?
Let me be very brutally frank. CBI lost his image when AP Singh, the director, was accused of taking bribe from Mr. Qureshi. CBI lost its image when Ranjit Sinha was ordered to be investigated. So the image of CBI, thanks to these wrong appointments by the government or misjudged appointments of the government, let me use that word, has already taken a big hit. This is another hit. You've already been hit. CBI has been hit. And it is not that as if it has been hit today. Even the previous government appointed wrong people as head of departments in the CBI, and they face corruption charges. The image, we lost our image. The image of the CBI started taking a beating quite some time back.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think should be done now? Can the CBI continue its investigation into Rakesh Asthana, looking at the counterclaims he has made and some of them before this FIR, as you pointed out? What would be the credibility of that investigation? What should be done with the number one and number two in this case? Can they continue as is?
Look, an FIR has been registered, and now there is no other method except continuing with the investigation. The government, if I were in the government, if I had any authority, I would advise them to remove immediately both of them from their position and ask the CVC, because under the CVC Act and the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, now the CVC is the controlling authority of the CBI. CVC has a police member. Government should direct the police member to look into these allegations, have his own team, and look into these allegations swiftly. Law should not be allowed to take its course in a drifting manner, and come to the conclusion whether these allegations have merit. If he says there is no merit, then action can be taken to report to the court that the FIR is wrong on facts. If he reports that the allegations have a semblance of truth, have prima facie correct, then they have to be investigated. And I recommend it should not be investigated by CBI officers, it should be recommended outside the CBI.
You know, there's a lot of undertones in all of this. People are speculating, and it is complete speculation right now, that you know, there are political pushes and pulls. X is closer to a certain section of the political class, Y is closer to another section. As the insider, what is you know, your take on what the inside track is?
I'm not an insider now. I was an insider when I was in the CBI. I've heard of these, you see, people speculate and they say they put political ideas behind and talk about political deviousness in these matters. I'm not sure, I do not know, I have no authority to speak on this. At the present moment, it looks that the Director CBI has exercised his authority and registered a case against another CBI officer. As you know, number one and number two have a huge gap. Police, they do not, there is no equality. He is not one among the senior most. Number one is number one, and the number two is way behind him. So he has taken that decision. Now to suggest that number one was acting on behest of another political party and number two is facing these problems because he belongs to another political party, these are idle speculations at the present moment. Let's take up the first thing first. The first thing is to see whether these allegations have merit. And it is not for the CBI now. CBI should not be allowed to judge the merit. Another team, SIT under the police member of the CVC, should look into this swiftly. CBI officers should not be burdened with the responsibility of investigating their own officers of these two ranks. CBI has investigated DIGs, SPs, legal officers, but I think it would be unjustified and incorrect to expect these senior officers to be investigated by CBI subordinates. Let the investigation be immediately taken over by the CVC police member. He shall appoint his special team and give the government a report about the truth and the prima facie nature of allegations which they have made against each other. One would be a secret inquiry against the director. on the allegation made by number 2, and one would be an open criminal inquiry on the FIR registered against him. But CBI should not be allowed to investigate these 2 cases anymore.
All right, strong words there coming from former Joint Director of the CBI, Shantonu Sen. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Well, the CBI has been called a caged parrot by the Supreme Court. The opposition party, whichever it is, always levies allegations against the CBI that its investigations are influenced by the ruling party of the day. The one clear outcome of what is happening right now within this investigation agency is to dent its credibility perhaps even further. Thank you for watching.